What up, y'all? It is Jamba back with another video. So, this is not another Cat Williams a reaction thing. I know that's like the still a big story, man, and it's amazing how many views it's gotten and how many people are kind of talking about it and how it just really pierce, the zeitgeist or like it's kind of got media in a chokehold for a little bit, and all the people, all the other communities reacting to it. This is kind of in the same umbrella. This is a pastor talking about Tyler Perry. It's only a minute and 26 seconds long. I don't know what this pastor is going to say. When it comes to pastors, especially, black pastors in like these like fundamentalist churches, you never know what you're going to get exactly. He could say something very, non-PC, something pretty offensive to a lot of people. You just don't really know, right? Maybe I might get into some of my thoughts about Tyler Perry, both good and not so good. But let's see what this guy has to say. Let's see what this pastor got to say.
Tyler Perry fooled the whole black community. He got us to do what RuPaul couldn't get us to do. He got us to do what no one else, and he came up with an ingenious way to do it. He and he alone got black folk to accept drag.
Got black folks to accept drag. I can't say that that's true because Martin Lawrence was doing drag and Martin, and niggas love Martin. Big Mama's House was a big hit with Martin Lawrence also did. Jamie Foxx also did drag and the Jamie Foxx show. I forgot the character he was playing. Juwanna Man was also pretty wasn't a big movie, but somewhat popular. Wayne's brothers, and I mean, there's been black Eddie Murphy, Nutty Professor. Technically, I know he was playing Eddie Murphy was playing multiple characters in that movie, but he was also playing a black woman. He's played black women before, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that Tyler Perry, just that claim. Um, what the hell is happening out there? It's so windy outside. I don't think that particular claim. I don't think we consider that to be true. Drag is something. I mean, regardless of whether or not you subscribe to it, it's been something that has been kind of ingrained into comedy. Now, do black male actors tend to do it, especially comedic actors tend to do it more often than male comedy actors? I would probably say so. I don't like Seth Rogen, and I'm thinking Adam Sandler, Jim. I'm thinking of like the big like Jim Carrey's, the Will Ferrell's. I'm thinking about like who are the big white comedians who've done drag, and obviously we can look at Robin Williams, and there's been a few others, but with black male comedians, even some who are not comedians per se, like Will Smith has done drag, and Ving Rhames. So I think that it is to Cat Williams's point, it is something that you see far more often with black male actors, despite black male actors being the minority of the landscape in regards to media. Like we're even though we're overrepresented, but we're not like there's still far more white male actors or just white actors in general in that just in the space, because it's reflective of the population for the most part. But yeah, so I don't agree with that point, but I don't know, maybe he has another point. It's only 17 seconds in, so let's see.
And you know how he did it? He did it through laughter. Through
Laughter, and if you're gonna go with his premise, it wasn't necessarily just laughter. I mean, that was a big thing, but also church. There's a if you were to look at it, and he might start talking about this as well since he's in church. But if you were to look at like a Venn diagram of Tyler Perry's like early fans, like in his hate, in his back when he was doing the plays and like transitioning to the movies, it was church folk. It was church folk and black women, church folk. I don't know where I was going with the whole Venn diagram thing. Point of the matter is that church and church culture was kind of low, especially black church culture specifically, was pretty synonymous with Tyler Perry even back then. So if you went to a black church, a lot of those women who were in those black churches, especially the older women, they like that Tyler Perry humor. They like that old Medea, you know what I'm saying? Up in her, like they a lot of them, especially in the South, a lot of them like that shit. Even I don't live in the South, but I knew that, when I was around church going people and my aunts and other family members and stuff like that, they were into, like, they went to church and they were into Tyler Perry. Like, that's just so, it's and Tyler Perry, he does, at least in his earlier stuff, he kind of put in a little bit of like that churchiness into his plays. At least I think so. I mean, I could be wrong, but I remember it being pretty fucking churchy. Um, anyways, what's up, Pastor?
Humor. He got us to accept drag queens. That's all Medea is a drag queen. So, and you know what he did? He went to churches.
There you go. See, all right, he knows, he does know. Even though I disagree with the first part, because again, there's too many other black drag actors who got famous or who were famous doing that. I know that Tyler Perry got famous off the drag, right? Like that's like the big role that he did. Like Martin Lawrence was still did other stuff before he started to get into the dresses and all that. But there's too many other black actors who did drag before Tyler Perry got there. But he's right about the churches, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah,
He went to churches, went to a place where he could go where you could almost guarantee folk ain't gonna be thinking.
listen, let's rewind that.
Well, guarantee folk ain't gonna be thinking.
Guarantee that folks ain't gonna be thinking. So what does that say about people? And I'm saying this, listen, y'all. I'm saying this as a person who still goes to church, still goes to often black churches, and has been involved in the church since I was like 4 or 5. My my parents, my mom's side, black churches. I'm saying this as a person who's been there. What does that say about the black church from his perspective? Weren't thinking. What does that say? And he's also not addressing that the primary basis of Tyler Perry's audience, even though yes, there were some men there, but his primary base audience, well, yeah, and he might have mentioned it. What it was, black women. So my whole thing is, if a person, look, if we're gonna have a problem with the whole Tyler Perry drag thing, blah 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 blah, in church, well, it's springboarded off of mostly primarily black women, and he's saying they weren't thinking. So if you want to say ignorant black people, black whatever you want to call it, but it's just I think that the base of the problem was a poor lack of leadership on the part of men like him, because I'm pretty sure, I'm not talking about him specifically, but I'm pretty sure that if we're going to say that this is an issue as people who are Christians, churches, blah blah blah, because what, there is in the Bible, there is, there are, it is not for people cross-dressing and whatever you want to call it. But if that's the case, then I think that the black churches, the pastors specifically in the black churches, I don't think they were speaking against that in mass like that. I think they kind of went along with it until I just didn't. I didn't see a whole lot of people kind of speaking ill on Tyler Perry. I just don't. And when you have a guy like Tyler Perry who, as he got more and more successful, probably gave back to black churches and etc. Unfortunately, when you giving money to a church or you're giving money to an organization, they're not going to be critical of that person. So I know Tyler Perry has done quite a bit for black people in Hollywood, kind of. Let me not get too deep into that. But just in general, it's just a thing where, like, when a person becomes successful, we, and they put it in they're circulating money back into the community in some way, shape, or form. We tend not to criticize. Um, we tend not to criticize them, which I'm not necessarily mad at. But I think that this is just something to. I just think the leadership, black male church leadership, has been piss poor, and that is why a lot of black men have walked away from church. That's the bottom line.
It won't reason. There won't nobody say, wait a minute. This man can't find an overweight black woman. You can't find a fat sister in the black church. You got to pretend to be her. You can look at it. You can, I mean, you can blindfold yourself and look in her direction and find a Medea. But through
This guy's low key shooting shots at his own. And I see what you're doing. That's kind of messed up. That's messed up. I mean, he's playing a role. Um, I think the reason why to me it makes sense as to why he played Medea. I'll tell you why it makes sense to me, because he based that role off of, and I didn't see the fucking documentary. They did a documentary on Tyler Perry on Amazon. I might watch it one day, but I don't really care that much. But from my understanding, he based that character off of his grandma or his aunt or something like that. And back then, and I'm speaking as somebody who, I didn't make that many short films or what he did like a few, but I never took it to festivals or anything like that. But as somebody who's kind of like dabbled in like super the most amateur of making trying to make a short or trying to put something together, yeah, you can't, it's hard to rely on people. So it makes sense for him in his early, now obviously as he probably could have got he to his point, he obviously could have gotten somebody to play Medea. Yes, I would agree to that. But I think that, and it's the same reason why he doesn't like to have other writers. Like he felt that he was able to do that Medea voice and the Medea character and it's the most accurately because it's based on somebody who's from his own personal life, and I think that's why the character has been effective. I'm not a big Tyler Perry fan, but I do know that Medea character is one of the most. This is gonna sound absurd, but it's true. Medea is actually probably the most one of the most iconic black characters like in cinema or black cinema history. You can't. How can you say otherwise? He's become a billionaire from the from his, not just his movies, but especially movies where that character was the centerpiece. You got characters. We got Smokey. I mean, like we there's like black iconic characters, and I think that it will be a disservice or what have you to say that Medea's character wouldn't be put up there as well. He That character will probably be in the top 5 or top 10. So it's an effective character. Um, but I'm thinking from like the church perspective of what that character and how that character being popular like means to the black community. And like I said, I just think that you know the black church was the catalyst of why he became so successful. So there is no Tyler Perry without the black church, and the black church is primarily black women, but more times than not, these spaces are led by black men like him. So let's continue with the rest of the video.
laughter, we let our guard down and made him a billionaire. And made him a billionaire. And through the devil learning how to manipulate.
I'm gonna rewind it in a bit, but I'm stopping on the billionaire part. Doesn't that the fact that black people were basically and obviously like you had white people watch this movies too. I went to a oh man, it was a god awful. I forgot what Tyler Perry movie it was, but man, that shit sucked. And it was like kids running up and down the aisles and shit, like some Mexican kids. um, but those white people in the theater, white people watch this stuff too. But to his point, ultimately he is right. Black people like made him a billionaire. And we've made quite a bit of people help quite a bit of people get to that point. I mean, with Michael Jordan in the shoes and so on and so forth. Again, it's not just us. But I think this kind of goes to how powerful the black dollar and how powerful black people are in regards to their spending power. I mean, Black Panther. I mean, I got my Black Panther poster over there. fell off the wall, which sucked. And the frame cracked. But um, Black Panther, and again, I know most of the people who saw Black Panther, most of the people who see these movies are not black, but Black Panther, $1 billion movie, the first movie, $1 billion. When black people get together and we really rally behind something, then it tends to be successful the vast majority of the time. We just don't tend to pick and choose like respectable projects to be successful, I guess. Woman King, and I wasn't even a big fan of Woman King. Woman King came out a couple years ago. It didn't come out last year. It came out the year before, like the same year. It came out the same year as Wakanda Forever. I saw it, didn't love it, but it was a pretty decent to good movie. Did black people see it in droves? No. Didn't do well. Didn't even get nominated for shit. Um, People saw Creed. You know that Creed again. That was like a bigger movie, not just black. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's we decide we we decide what which projects and things representation wise are successful. So if the stereotype, if the and it's not just Tyler Perry playing the Medea stereotype, the black woman stereotype. There's a lot of other stereotypes and tropes and things in his films. I mean, he's been heavily criticized for the way that he portrays black men, especially darker skinned black men, and all that. I mean, we look. There's been plenty of like just go find a different video on YouTube that talks about this. It's not going to be here, but but stereotypes aside, the black people will still support him and go still watching his shit. So again, what does this say about us? What does this say about what we gravitate towards on stars? No shade to stars. I done pitched to stars a couple of times. They're fine with me. But stars got 3 to 4 shows about drug dealing. Like they got about 3 or 4 of them. Power universe. How the fuck does Power have a whole cinematic universe like Marvel or Star Wars or DC? Just a cinematic universe of niggas drug dealing, and it got BMF, Snowfall. What do you know? So we can look at white people, we can look at Tyler Perry, we can look at them, but we also gotta look at us. Just and this is just when it comes to this. This is only talking about media, y'all. So let's wrap this up. I'm gonna rewind it back a little bit.
Through the devil learning how to manipulate our emotions and make us feel something, and we're beginning to put our color ahead of our religion.
All right. He said, "Put our color ahead of our religion." No, I don't. I do not want to see Charleston White. Yeah, I mean, on that last point, he talked about emotions, and again, here's where there's a little drop of hypocrisy here. Black churches and how and the reason why like I look I the church I go to now I'll still go. I really mainly go there, because I like, I don't I like going to church and being in a place of worship and all that. But it's also my mom is there, my grandfather is there, and I like to spend time with my grandfather, while he's around and all that. um but black churches, if anybody who's been to a black church knows, when it comes to the preaching, it thrives on the emotion. You see, God, He wants you to come and spend your money. Say, God, if God wants you to take out your wallet and give out some money, y'all know what I'm talking about. Like and then you have the organ playing and all this other shit. So it's all emotion. It's a lot of emotion there. They be pastors be talking about, see, back in the old days, we didn't have an iPhone, we didn't have the wireless, we didn't have the Wi-Fi. See, God, He's only the Wi-Fi that you need. See, God, He's the real connection, not an internet connection, the Lord connection. It's very emotional. It's very emotional. No, please, no one clip that. That was horrible. Um, It's very emotional driven. I've been to some white churches. White churches can be a little similar, not necessarily with the preaching, but with the music. I mean, it's very and I it's a very emotion, not even just because of like the whole like prayer and God and all this and the Holy Spirit and all that stuff, regardless if you believe in it or not. Um, that's it's very emotional based. It is how they preach. They don't usually are preaching from a place of logic and a it's usually emotional. It's usually to get you riled up. It's usually to get you feeling some type of way, which I think it can be effective. But I think that some people kind of, especially men, again, especially black men. If you're talking about black churches here, they kind of look at preachers and they look at back black pastors like kind of like it's like a hustle, you know. But let me not get too deep into this. This is a very relatively short video. Shit, 20 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I see where this pastor again from a biblical standpoint it's coming from. But at the end of the day, though, black churches, we can criticize the word all we want to, but there's a lot of issues within these spaces that needs to be addressed, and that's a fundamental reason why people, in particularly men, in this case, black men, are not going to church anymore like that. So yeah, so look, this is Jamba with another video. It's 4 fucking o'clock in the morning. Yeah, so like, subscribe, and I'll see you again.